This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, I will call to order this meeting of the Easthampton Planning Board for Tuesday, February 2024. We have one member, Chris Shaw, here remotely, and we are recording. First item on the agenda, is there anyone here to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? We're online now, we're going to
Check, I'm not seeing any.
Okay, someone's going to come.
No
Next
hands
item,
raised.
Planning board minutes for January 25th, 2024.
Motion to approve the minutes from January 25th, 2024.
All right, voting to approve the minutes. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, excellent. Next up, we have an A&R for Donald Polisakowski for lots at 86 Pomeroy Street. Someone here to speak to that?
Yeah. All I'm doing is, we've been a long time landowner out there for over 70 years. And I'm gonna cut 2 lots off to sell them, it's under zoning. And that's it.
Looks like it's got the required frontage. Any comments, questions, concerns, planning department, board members?
All look good.
Motion to endorse the A&R at 86 Pomeroy Street. Second.
All right, voting to endorse the A&R. All those in favor? Aye. Chris?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, all right. I will, actually, I'll get the signing now that I am recusing myself from the next part of this meeting.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. It's good to see you again. The next item is the continued special permit and stormwater permit hearing for 282 Loudville Road. Welcome back. I'm going to start just with a little update as always. My intent is to present anything new to us. Following that, the board may have some questions. Be a little bit patient, just talk over this time. I said at the last meeting, this will be a limited opportunity for the public to speak. We're nearing the point where we're going to close the public hearing, but I will give an opportunity for the public to speak following that, but I'll ask it to be related to things that are new information or things that were discussed today, and I'll keep it down low. Following that, we're going to go through our findings and conditions. There's a lot of reading on my part, and then we'll take a vote. So, without further ado, what does the applicant have for us?
Good evening. John Furman with DHB in Springfield, project engineer of record, and with me Joe Kelly, the applicant. This was a general update. We had a submittal on the 15th of January. We had just a number of items in it. We provided a draft of the condominium trust and master deed. We had one update on a plan. I don't know if I can share or not, but
You join the meeting? I can
I
make you
did.
co-host. What are you, DF? Are you MSL?
must be. Yes.
MSL?
Yes.
You're MSL? Or you're DF?
Oh,
Your username?
Username on there. I don't see John Furman as a
oh.
person in here. I just see.
Google, isn't it?
Yeah.
Take it back.
I don't know.
Let me take a quick look here.
Save my. This here. The other thing is it. Sign out.
Please bear with us since we resolve our technical difficulties.
Oh, that might be my wife's. Maybe.
We're about to find out. How are we looking?
Are you able to share?
I am not.
Well,
You share on his behalf?
I can if we have to, but we should be able to. There we go.
Ah,
There we
well
go.
done. I think for that a little.
All right. Yeah. I'll make that. Let's see. I have to apologize, it's not coming up for me right now on my directory.
We could,
I can pull it up if
Can-
need be.
Can you pull that up, please? For some reason, I apologize, for some reason, it's not showing.
Oh, give me just a moment and then I'll go ahead and present.
While that's coming up, so it's basically a one plan update to the plan set that you already had in your records. And it basically was the utility plan sheet 502. And there were two things on it. The first was the fire department at the last meeting had requested a hydrant be relocated. So we did that and we repositioned the water line at the end of the cul-de-sac to kind of make it more efficient and cut down on the lengths of the services. So that's included on that plan. The other item that was added to that was along the tree cutting line, which is our 200-foot buffer. We showed some dots, which basically we're using to mark the tree cutting line. What we were planning to use on that was a steel pipe, 4 foot long, buried 2 feet, painted, sticking out of the ground about 2 feet, and they were 50 feet on center. And with that spacing, it actually ended up following the angle points on that cutting line fairly well. So those are really the only two updates that we had on the plan. One of the planning board had asked about DEP construction permit at the last meeting, and I did some research on that. Took a bit to find it. It isn't well publicized, but when you look at it in my response to a comment letter, I actually cited the specifics and the website. That permit is only required if the project that you are doing has a stormwater discharge to an outstanding water resource in the Commonwealth. Since all our stormwater is being infiltrated and we don't have that discharge, that's a permit that we don't. And so in that response to comment letter, I provided the link of where I got that information. So we're good. I don't think there was anything else. I know that we've got a couple.
I mentioned something about some of the stuff in the HOA.
Yes.
Was that updated at all?
The HOA was updated. There was from the last meeting, there was 5 or 6 items that the board had wanted. We provided a copy of that. It was actually in the master deed that we put it, which is going to become the HOA. Joe can explain it, but I think the master deed is what every tenant agrees to or what every owner agrees to. And we left them in red at the back of the document. And it covered everything that you were looking for, which was the monuments, going off the top of my head. Is that it right there? Yep, that's it right there. So everything that you had asked for, we've added to the back of it.
Okay. I'm having a little difficulty seeing to make a copy and you call it. Can we read those out just so it's public record? I don't know if someone can see it more clean than I can. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. So I just want to note that 22 says the unit owners shall be responsible for maintenance of the stormwater management system in accordance with the maintenance plan set forth in the stormwater report dated November 7th, 2023 and filed with the town of Easthampton. 23 at sewage pump lift stations. Unit owners shall be responsible for all required maintenance, repair, and replacement of the sewage pump lift station servicing the condominium development. 23 buffers. Permanent monuments and or markers shall be installed along the 200-foot buffer zone. The original plans filed with the town of Easthampton. No further tree clearing or development shall be permitted within said buffer zone. 24 tree clearing. No tree clearing should be permitted within the condominium development other than what is depicted in the original plans filed with the town of Easthampton. 25 wire, cable, and warning signs. Wire, cable, and warning signs shall be installed and maintained along the steep slope located at the rear of the condominium development. The unit owners shall be responsible for the maintenance and replacement of the wire, cable, and warning signs. And finally, 26, election of successor trustees. Following the first annual meeting of the unit owners, notice of the newly elected board of trustees shall be filed with the town of Easthampton. Said notice shall identify the newly elected board of trustees by name and shall provide contact information for each. Said notice will be made available to the town of Easthampton for reviewing by the abutters of the condominium development. Thank you. I just wanted to get that in the record. So I had to thank you for that.
We had received an email from the system planner that we had not yet provided the development restrictions or the declaration of restrictions. It slipped our mind. We produced that today. We had it edited. We used Stepler, Project Stepler as a guide, but that had references to the Conservation Commission, which we didn't have here. So we actually edited it to reflect this process in the planning board, and we submitted it late today, albeit somewhere around 4 o'clock, but that's a one pager. And it basically
Can you
just,
confirm that the ones you emailed out later in there was an email about some late submissions, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, that one was not included for this one. This one has been uploaded to the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
So I can
So,
go
so
ahead.
basically the intent of the document basically says that the area that's delineated as the 200-foot buffer and marked by the monuments will not be any more tree cutting and will not be developed.
Yeah, I think I need to just lay eyes on that. Something we can bring up real quick.
Mhm.
How many pages are we talking here?
Actually, it's the one, the next page is just the signature page.
Okay. Unable to read that. Can we make it bigger?
Yeah, and there's also one in your packet as well.
Great. Bear with me a second. One, that's not it.
It's right after the stable decision packet, there's decision, and then should be the first.
So it's at the very beginning. Declaration of restrictions. Okay. Take a look here. $200-foot buffer, Wetlands Protection Act, okay. Special permit. No development, including 200-foot buffer, all right. Binding on all grantees here, so by these executors, administrators, science successors, okay. It's good to meet Jeff. Have you had a chance to look at this?
Briefly, I mean, I think it fulfills the general purpose of what we were looking for. The one question would be for reference to the Exhibit A. Which would like to confirm what the Exhibit A would be.
Did you hear Jeff's question?
No, I'm sorry.
You're not please restate.
I think the only question that we maybe had was about Exhibit A, and if there was a way to identify what you would expect Exhibit A to be.
So Exhibit A is referring to here would basically be the plan that we submitted tonight, or previously that we showed on the board tonight that actually shows the markers along that buffer.
So this is going to be modified to maybe say that more explicitly. It says currently, therefore, there shall be no development within the 200-foot buffer as identified on the plan of land, which is attached here to as Exhibit A. It does say on the plan of land, but it's supposed to be attached.
We will take that plan, make a separate plan and title it Exhibit A. And because this is going to get recorded, that plan has to be shrunk down to 8.5 by 11. So that's why it'll be attached.
All right, that makes sense.
This plan here.
That one there, yep. And if you look at the bottom, the note that's ballooned actually identifies what those are.
Those were the outstanding items that I had. There's a $136, $1,000 bond, right?
I will volunteer to go to pay that.
But we already talked about, you acknowledged that was going to be part of it. We'll touch on that later.
Yes.
Any other questions from the board at this point? Don't see anything missing. Chris, you're online there. Do you have anything? No? I'm not hearing anything. So then at this point, I do want to give the public, unless you have anything else.
I don't.
I'll give the public kind of a last chance to make commentary. I ask that you keep it brief and maybe about anything new. It's always name and
Chuck McCullough, 42 Ashley Circle.
just again, I've said before, but I want to say it again, to thank the planning board, developer, the builder, and the engineer of this project for their collaborative approach to date. As we get closer to the end of this process, the abutters still see the need for some minor edits, some of which John was just talking about now, regarding the draft of the conditions as well as the master deed. The abutters have had council review the two documents, as well as some other information recently submitted to the planning board regarding the project. As a result, we submitted recommendations from our attorney to the city planner's office. This is all happening, unfortunately, today, just given some circumstances. At this point, we're suggesting it might be productive for our attorney and the council, the developer, just to take one last look at the order conditions as well as the master deed, just to make sure. And again, I repeat, these are really not extensive things to indicate again. The work done today has been terrific, and we really are appreciative of it. This could occur very quickly over the next week or so. These are just edits as we found some of them, some that were addressed today. And I can just outline a couple of them very quickly. The one thing I'd say for that reason, we're suggesting that we extend the what would be the word? Suggest that the application be continued just the moment in time for our attorney to just take a look at these elements one more time. Some of the examples are, and I think John just touched on one. I was just talking to him about that. There needs to be just an eye for consistency of when we're defining 200-foot buffer zone and the terrific area that they've really created in this area that is denoted by those markers. And I'm not saying this just for us. I'm saying this for individuals that might be looking at this 10, 15 years from now, to be very clear that the 200-foot buffer zone is really one line if you do it officially. But again, the good work of the developer, they ended up extending it into that wooded area. We just want to make sure it's very clear in all documentation that large area that has been created is the protected area from development moving forward. In the deed and conditions, the number of actual buildings needs to be correctly, consistently defined. I think they've been doing that and making those corrections. But when I read it, yesterday, I was like, those were inconsistent. And then the condition of the special permit should define that the deed and the trust document, the HOA, should reflect maintenance responsibilities. And I think we were just talking about some of that related to stormwater, sewer pump maintenance, the wire cable, and buffer planting maintenance, which I think will be an important element. Also, again, the good work and collaborative nature of this effort, we've created some buffer areas beyond the buffer planting between the buffer plantings and the boundaries that are now wooded areas that are protected. And this would mean, some protections against tree clearing in those areas moving forward. We've created great privacy barriers, and I think we just want to make sure that the HOA protects those and keeps those conditions intact moving forward. Again, I would say these are all I think we're in the bottom of the ninth, and I think we can finish this off, but I do think there are a few details that still need to be looked at. Thank you.
Before you step away, if it's okay.
Please.
So this is a little difficult for me. I really want harmony. I've used that word a few times. For me, this project has gone on a little long, and I'm always cognizant there's two sides to the story, sometimes three. But there's the waiting and efforts and monies that developers poured into this, and kind of the reward for pushing it on another. And then there's, are we missing something critical that would do harm in the future? I think you indicate that there are some areas where language could be strengthened, the lines protecting the buffers, but I also heard some of it was semantic or syntactic, the way things were being referenced in there. Some of those things are often looked at again because, when we look at these drafts and approve them, there's usually an understanding with the planning department that when they find in the final revision where they sign it, an I didn't think that or a T didn't cross it, that's part of the standardized corrections. So we need to gauge now as a board whether or not there is actually merit in delaying this further. So my first question is to the applicant. Do you care?
We prefer not to delay it any further.
Right. So then the question is, of the things that were just presented to us, do we find merit in delay? My personal answer on this is that I think the things that mostly you've referenced are things that we're going to catch. And I think that the applicant has done a lot. I'm hesitant. I really want to make this work, but I do feel like we pushed this pretty far. That's my take on it. Does anyone else have a?
If we're gonna catch these things that you mentioned over review, I don't think we should delay.
Aaron?
I feel the same.
No delay? Is that what you're saying?
Same thing. It sounds like they're relatively minor, more or less along the lines of administrative.
And I'll just, I'll give you, I promise. Chris?
I agree. I think it's administrative.
Okay, so now that puts us in a situation where the butters are making requests. You know, the board is feeling like, okay, we don't really feel that's necessary, but the butters would like to see them. So we just ask you at this point, out of, you know, it's a kindness thing, to please continue to work with the butters to resolve those things that they're touching. And I asked the planning department, you know, to keep an eye out for typos, that, especially things that are maybe misreferenced.
And I assure you that the items that our attorney has seen or has suggested, I think John was touching on some of those today. I think this is just call it a last review that would satisfy, I think, all the abutters. We're not, I would then again commend the whole process. This has been from where we started to where we are now. I think it's remarkable. I do think there are just some of the, there are a couple of them, I wouldn't say some of them are as minor as that. I think there is some consistency that we want to make sure is achieved. And as I said, John, I think just touched on it, how that buffer area is defined in all documentation. There are some differences in conversation and how that is stated in certain documents. 200-foot barrier versus,
Point
I
out
think it's
where
called
now.
riverfront buffer line.
Maybe it's something we can resolve right now.
Yeah. I would say as long as we can be assured that the documentation is going to define that area, it's an area that's not going to be developed at all. And then the other area would be just the buffer areas that are between the boundaries and the plantings. We just want to make sure that there is some guidance from in the conditions or in the master deed where those areas are not going to be developed in any way, shape, or form. As an example, let's just say the wooded area between the boundary and the buffer plantings is a place where at some point the HOA down the road says, you know, we probably should have a generator, just hypothetically. Let's do that as a group. Well, we've got to put that building somewhere. So we have an area here. So we want to make sure that there are protections in place to be able to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And I think that's reasonable. Yeah, I mean, the declaration of restrictions we just discussed, it's item number 1 said, you know, there shall be no development within the 200-foot riverfront buffer as identified on the plan. We just talked about that. I mean, that seems like it's going to catch that.
Right. It'll catch it in that area, but what about boundaries outside the 200-foot buffer zone, particularly between the boundary, say, between my property and the buffer area? Again, the developer's done a great job of creating that space for privacy for the benefit of the people that they're developing these homes for, as well as us. But at some point down the road, there's going to be another group of people, not these folks, probably not me, that might have an area, a wooded area that is doing just what we wanted to do now, but may be a site that someone says in the future would be a great place to put a building for a generator or a shed.
Okay. And this is, I'm working to get this clear, and I'm going to go just a little bit further with this because I want to make sure we touch on it. And, you know, it's important to understand that we don't really have an obligation to go through this, but we want harmony. So it's more than 200 foot. It's more than a 200-foot river buffer. You're asking for other buffers to be included wherever the 200-foot river buffer is mentioned, and we need to define those buffers. Am I stating that correctly?
Right. I would say that the areas that are between buffer plantings and the buffer plantings in the area that is being developed and boundaries, there's some wooded areas. We would just want to see those developed. just to, I mean, again, protect the future property owners.
Deb, were you able to make commentary precedents to this?
Somewhat. So in your packet, the board has the packet with it was the decision, then it was the declaration of covenants, and then it's a document that is an email attorney for the abutters has reviewed the deed.
Yeah.
So that, if you turn to the next page, that's the set of suggested changes that the abutters have at least come forward with today, which is helpful.
And I'm sorry, we haven't had.
No, that's
Right,
fine.
yep.
There's circumstances, I think, beyond all our control of why this was coming. So
Yep. And I've given a paper copy to the applicant too, so I think we could walk through this. Is there any way to get that computer, the screen that's not working?
Yeah.
I can reflect these two screens again over there,
Okay.
maybe,
Um,
hopefully.
My, oh,
Get that
there it
one.
is. I mean, my observation is that the first is a proposed condition, which is wholly within the board's authority to talk about tonight, and it's prior to construction, the physical markers, basically are referenced on a plan. And I think that was already covered in the declaration of restriction discussion. I think that's very easy for the board to incorporate as a condition. The other thing is I just wanted to talk this through, is I think that's the way we're,
Before we
Yeah.
continue on, can we lock that one out? Are you okay with that? The physical markers being placed on the plan? Okay, sorry, please continue.
and that would be, it's sheet C5.02, which was previously discussed. So that would be, we could call out that plan in a condition. Then I think just for discussion purposes, what's proposed to be add number 13 and 14 and 15 are all within the master deed. So I think the question for the applicant is just being very aware that this would directly tie the master deed language to the special permit. So there's something under 13, which is basically preventing future development in the buffer zone. I think that's what that's calling out. And then 14 is a provision that there's any substantial changes to the master deed will be reviewed by the board at a public meeting. So that's something that I just want to air these out. And then 15.
Wait, before you go on
Yeah.
further here, have you seen that before? 14? That's something you've seen precedents of. That seems abnormal.
I mean, I think it could go either way. I think if the applicant was willing to accept that as a condition, I don't think it's, so they're saying no, so we should talk about that. Then number 15 is really just,
Yes.
items that are already in there, in the master deed. Except this notwithstanding anything contrary, no further development, within the non-riverfront buffer zone, which I think is understood by the nature of the plan that that's going to be the case. And then the last two bullets, the last, unit owners would, replace, plants in the planting plan, which I think is going to be a condition of the permit anyway. I think that was in the draft conditions. And then the last one was that,
that's the maintenance of the plantings.
correct, the maintenance. And then the last one is really just a firm statement that the condominium is subject to the special permit decision. Which I would argue could be built.
Back on the deed, that our council does this, and that is something that she has seen, and so having the orders of condition and the deed come together, she has seen that, and she's actually working on two of those right now.
So I think
That's not unusual.
So I heard you, Jeff, that we'll add the physical markers in as a condition. A lot of the other stuff is kind of inherently there, and maybe we need to make a decision on the master deed.
correct. And I think that applicant has-
Provide input on that.
Hey, please do, if you don't mind sitting back for just a moment, Mr. McCullough, I'll let you do that.
Yep.
We're just gonna try and work it out together.
That condition 14 is a problem. We had a conference call today after we received this. And all the properties that the developer owns, there's never a condition that the master deed and the restrictions in it, if there's any edits to it, have to come back before planning board to get approved. That's just above and beyond. They ought to be able to make changes to a master deed with approval of the homeowners for things that this board doesn't involve. If they wanted to change the planting in front of the building on the landscape plan, which is not shown on any of these plantings. But let's say they put a forsythia there and they're overgrowing and they want to put a holly there for something small. they should be able to make those changes without having to come to the board, because that stuff is not identified on the plans at all. This puts a huge burden on the project, and they're just adamant that we can't do that.
I'd like to swap to the board. Anyone want to do that?
I live in a kind of complex and, we've never come in front planning board to make changes, so.
Something else?
No.
Eric? Yes. Chris? You there, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the discussion. I don't think it's, I think 14 is a little bit over the top.
All right, and I agree. So we're just not going to move forward on that. I think that what we came away with reading this is that most of the stuff is already in there. We're going to add a condition to add the physical markers to the plan. That's it.
And one other comment, if I could, too. The updated draft decision was emailed today. We had a chance to look at it with the conditions on it. As a standard condition, the board has a comment on that no changes are allowed to the development other than what's on the approved plans. So that statement alone prohibits most of these things from happening. We show a tree cutting line on the drawing. That's where we were saying that's where our buffer is. If you go by what this says in there, the agreement that we already have about flagging the buffer line and then walking it to adjust it becomes null and void. What's going to happen is we're going to flag the buffer line, and then whatever's in the way is going to come down. And that's not what we agreed to. We agreed to be collaborative with that. We agreed to take that line and move it as we needed to save some trees that might be signature. This directly goes against that.
So are you asking us to modify the conditions we have in the draft?
No, what I'm saying is the conditions that you have there, I think are fine. This is just,
Okay, good.
this is, a little too restrictive.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
Did you want to, yeah, please?
Yes,
Please. I count you still, it's still part of your. Yeah.
No, and I don't disagree with John in some of those points. I think what does need to be clarified is that the HOA does need to have some definition to the areas that, again, that as he's pointed out, we are going to be walking those lines and making sure that if there's some signature trees, areas that we can protect more, yeah, sure, we're going to do that. And, again, with their agreement. But once everything is constructed, we want to make sure that the areas that have been, dutifully protected remain so. I think that we've done a lot of great work here to make sure that a property like mine, I'm not going to be the one living there my entire life, not by a long shot. And there's going to be a lot of other abutters who have property right there who they've done great work to protect it. We just want to make sure that those areas stay protected. So how do we do that? A lot of the other language, I mean, I get it, that's part of the master deed is concerned, but I think we want to just make sure that work outside the 200-foot, protected buffer zone that's been defined, the other areas that are around boundaries, somehow there's some protection.
I don't think anyone on this board disagrees with me, and I do think you have a very collaborative thing going. But I think there's kind of a point of diminishing returns in the simplicity that we have, and I think from the temperature of the board, there's correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we all are at a point where we're feeling that it's captured in the conditions we have already sufficient.
Yeah, the one thing I would ask is, and also temper a little bit of what you received today. That was an attorney who had to pick up things. She had to carry the ball, almost immediately, just given, again, some extenuating circumstances that occurred with who we've regularly been working with. So if there's some things that are a little off-putting, it was not intentional. But the other part I would say is that there is some good thoughts there. So as you finish your editing and complete the orders of condition, if you can use those as a touchstone, well, I think that would be a good guideline to use.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Honestly, it's the amount of effort and work that's come out of the butters. Please come on.
I apologize. I have to go. I have a meeting at 6:45.
Hi, I'm Brenda House, 400 Lane. I don't know if this is pertinent or not. Obviously, I don't think anything of what Joe Kelly and I actually had a telephone conversation, maybe a couple weeks ago regarding, the pine trees, that are abutting my fence. And, I don't know if there's anything in this paperwork that reflects the fact that he told me he was going to clean up the trees up to, the healthy parts of the pine trees, and cut any branches that look like they could impede on my fence and knock it down. And I guess I'm just thinking this was just a phone conversation that nobody was aware of. And should this be in any paperwork that says, yes, he has agreed to do this work? Because otherwise, I guess he could change his mind and say, I never said it. So I don't know how to handle that. If that's, I mean, I trust him. I think he's an honest guy.
So we'll resolve that in a second. Do you have anything else besides that? I want to get it all so we can handle it all at once. Anything else?
No, basically, I just want to make sure if he's going to do what he promised he would do.
Thank you. All right, would you mind coming? Thank you.
So, Mr. Kelly did relate that conversation to me, and it's actually included on one of the landscaping plans. It is not to the extent that was just described. We've all walked the buffer or that tree area, and we know it's like all dead sticks, and then the canopy actually starts below. So we're proposing to leave all that. We're not going to clean that up and have trees that look like mushrooms, just sticks with things on top. So we have a note on the plans to, I'll walk the property line and any of those sticks that aren't going to grow, and that overhang the property line to clear them away so that they don't impact that opponent's property. As I explained at that last meeting, the original discussion was to kind of take all of that down and then to replant it. And the problem we have with that is that while the trees are not quality, I guess is the word I'll put it, the canopy above is actually fairly dense, and the understory is what's dead. So by keeping that canopy and then planting trees along the buffer to fill that gap, we create a visual barrier that's 20 to 30 tall. And the house, if you can see the peaks, one of them's a 2-story, so you get more of a buffer, even though it's not great. You get more of that buffer than if you took it down and planted, 8-foot trees. So that's why we've left it the way it is.
So I feel like we've had this conversation 3-4 times now. And I remember, I think it was Member Cockshaw who asked very pointedly at the last meeting, I think it was, why can't you clear that out? And we went through this and discussed it, and it got to the point where we knew what we were able to do. I think that, at this point, that's what it's going to be, is what he just said. Unless there's someone here on the board.
No, I think it was Harry.
Was it Harry? Forgive me.
Yeah, Harry.
I apologize. But I mean, you did ask about it. We got an answer. So, yeah. So I mean, I think that's where we're at this point. Okay. Yeah. All right. Anything else from anyone in the public? Anyone online, perhaps? No. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to move forward into reading our findings, and then I'll go through our conditions. And we'll discuss any potential changes from them. And after that, we'll take a vote. First off, thank you for the draft. Moving through here, I see our findings begin. 8.3.1, multifamily dwellings by special permits. This is multifamily housing section. A, multifamily dwelling should be permitted in the R5, R10, R15, R35 downtown business, highway business, neighborhood business, mixed-use mill industrial districts. As noted in Table 5-1, only upon issuance of a special permit from the planning board as specified in Section 12 of this ordinance, and in accordance with the additional requirements specified herein. The board finds that the property is located in the R35 zoning district, where the use is allowed with a special permit. Going forward, I'm going to summarize some of these headings. Multifamily dwellings with at least 15% of the dwelling units meet the criteria for affordability in the aforementioned districts, and only upon the issuance of a special permit from the planning board as specified by Table 5-5. And the board finds that the proposal does not contain any affordable units, therefore the section is not applicable. C, the development shall be served by public water system, fire, in terms of fire protection and domestic use. It also shall be served by public sewer on an individual lot septic system, which meets the requirements of Title V. The board finds the proposed development of 4 new duplex buildings and 6 single-unit buildings will be served by public water and public sewer, both being accessed from existing infrastructure on Loudville Road. 8.32 dimensional requirements. A, all multifamily dwelling units shall conform to the dimensional requirements as specified in Table 6-1 and Table 6-2. The board finds that all dimensional requirements are met pursuant to the zoning table shown on revised site plans prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. Specifically, the property is approximately 12.22 acres, 532,303 square feet, where Table 6-1 requires 35K for the first unit and additional 35K square feet for each additional unit. A total of 525,000 square feet is required for the proposed 15 units. Property contains 191.28 feet of frontage on Loudville Road, which exceeds the minimum requirement of 120 feet. The units comply with all minimum front, side, and rear setback requirements. The proposed building coverage is 5.5%, where 10% is allowed. B, more than one structure may be allowed on a lot in a multifamily housing project by special permit from the planning board, provided that the minimum lot size requirements in Table 6-1 and 6-2 are met for each structure. The board finds that the 10 new structures are permitted under the special permit, consisting of 4 duplexes and 6 single-family units, along with the existing single-family dwelling for a total of 11 structures, are consistent with the requirements of the section, as shown in the revised site plan prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. C, the maximum number of dwelling units per structure shall be 18, with a condition in the R15 and 35 districts that the minimum yard setbacks be increased to 50 feet in a structure that contains over 6 units. In the mixed-use mill industrial, the planning board by special permit may allow a greater number of units in historic mill buildings. The board finds that the proposed development consists of buildings with a maximum of 2 units per structure. Moving forward now to 8.33, additional requirements for multifamily dwellings. A, the development shall be integrated into the existing terrain and surrounding landscape and shall be designed to protect the voting properties and community members, amenities, and to the extent feasible, it'll minimize use of wetlands, steep slopes, floodplains, and hilltops. The board finds all construction is proposed outside the 200-foot riverfront buffer, as shown in C602, plan set, in the revised site plans prepared by VHB dated January 15, 2024. 2, minimize obstruction of scenic views from publicly accessible locations. The board finds the project is sufficiently set back from Loudville Road as to not create any obstructions of scenic views. 3, preserve unique natural or historic features. The board finds the project leaves the 200-foot riverfront buffer intact. 4, minimize tree vegetation and soil removal and grade changes. And the board finds that 10.56 acres of existing trees on site, approximately 7.27 acres, 69%, are being maintained and protected as stated in the cover letter narrative dated November 7th, 23. 5, maximize open space retention, and the board finds the project provides 81% open space as stated in the cover letter narrative. Ooh, had trouble with that one. Dated November 7th, 23. 6, screen objectionable features from neighboring properties and roadways. The board finds proposed project meets, I think that should be the proposed project, meets or exceeds all setback and vegetative buffer requirements as shown on C3 of the revised site plans prepared by VHB dated January 15th, 24. And B, more than one structure may be placed on a lot, but no residential structures should be placed closer to each other than 10 feet and must be visually separated by trees and plantings. In addition, each dwelling must be provided with access, drainage, and utilities functionally equivalent to that provided under the planning board subdivision rules and regulations. The board finds all structures are at least 20 feet apart from one another as shown in C3 in the revised site plan prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. All proposed structures have sufficient access, drainage, and utilities. C, in downtown business, highway business, and mixed-use mill industrial districts, no dwelling should be permitted on the street level. The board finds that this section is not applicable. Moving now into design requirements, 8.332. A, buildings shall be in harmony with the prevailing character and scale of the building in the neighborhood and the city through the use of appropriate building materials, screening, breaks, and roof and wall lines, and other architectural techniques. The board finds the proposed buildings are consistent with the style architecture and massing of the existing houses along this section of Loudville Road as shown in the revised site plans prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. 8.333 vehicular and pedestrian access requirements. A, the plan shall maximize the convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site and in relation to adjacent ways. A traffic memorandum dated November 6, 23 was prepared for this development to determine the potential for off-site impacts. This document is provided separately as part of the submittal. The memorandum shows that 13 new vehicle trips will be added to the roadway network during the weekday morning peak hour, and 17 new vehicle trips will be added to the weekday evening peak hour. These additional vehicle trips will not impact the adjacent roadway network. The project driveway connects to Loudville Road in a straight section, which provides adequate sight distance in either direction. The board so finds this to satisfy this condition. B, multifamily structures shall have access on roads having sufficient width, suitable grades, and adequate construction to provide for the needs of vehicular traffic generated by the site. The board finds that the proposed roadway meets subdivision standards for width, grades, and construction specifications. C, connecting walkways with tree belts should be provided between structures and parking areas within the site and shall be constructed in accordance with the standards set forth in the Easthampton subdivision regulations. The board finds the proposed provides adequate sidewalks throughout the development to satisfy this requirement. 8.334 open space and buffer requirements. The board may require that a minimum of 50% of the land not devoted to dwellings, accessory uses, roads, or other development be reserved as open space and be made available for active and passive recreation. The board finds that approximately 19% of the property will be developed, which will result in 81% reserves as open space. The board finds that approximately 90% of the property, I think that's duplicate, please strike the duplicate sentence. The declaration of restrictions prepared by VHB dated February 6, 24 states that no tree clearing or development shall occur within the 200-foot riverfront buffer. B, multifamily dwellings shall be separated from adjacent properties by buffer strips consisting of trees or fencing sufficient to minimize the visual and noise impacts of the development. Goes on to state some other requirements. The board finds that the consolidation of 8 single-family dwellings into 4 duplexes increases the side yard setbacks and has allowed for dense vegetative buffers throughout the site as shown in C3 and C10 of the revised site plans prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. The minimum requirement of 10 feet is met along the 286-290 Loudville property line. The requirement is exceeded along 2-6 Hunter Lane with a vegetative buffer of ranging from 25 to 45 feet. I think I need to go there. The requirement is exceeded along the 42 Ashley Circle property line with a vegetative buffer of 50 feet. 8.335 parking, loading, and lighting requirements. To the extent feasible, parking areas shall not be located within a required front yard and shall be screened from public ways and adjacent or abutting properties by building location, fencing, or planting. The board finds that the primary parking area for the units are in the driveway and in the garages, and that this provision is not applicable to duplexes as opposed to potentially larger multifamily buildings with additional units and separate parking areas. B, exposed storage areas, machinery, service areas, truck loading areas, utility building construction, and other unsightly uses shall be setback screens to protect the neighbors from objectionable features. The board finds that the proposal is for small residential units where no dumpster or service areas are required in this section. It's not applicable. No building shall be floodlit. Driveways, parking areas, walkways, and entranceways shall be illuminated only by shielded lights, not higher than 15 feet. The board finds that this project does not propose any flood lighting, and lighting is limited to the buildings only. 8336 water supply and sewage requirements. A, water supply and waste disposal systems shall not place excessive demands on municipal infrastructure. The board finds that based on a review prepared by the Easthampton DPW prepared February 5th, 24, the proposed units will not place excessive demands on the municipal water system. Stormwater runoff, section 8.337. A, to the extent feasible, measures for runoff from impervious surfaces shall be designed to meet the following objectives in an appropriate manner. 1, prevent non-point source pollution from urban runoff to streams, water bodies, and groundwater. The board finds the grade on the property has all the runoff water from improved surfaces directed into the basin as shown in C4 of the revised site prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. 2, prevent the flooding of other neighboring down gradient properties. The board finds, plural please, the proposed basin sufficient to handle stormwater runoff as to prevent flooding of down gradient neighbors as shown in the updated hydro ad report. prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. 3, promote recharge of groundwater aquifers while preventing pollutants from entering groundwater. The board finds the proposed basin sufficient to filter stormwater runoff as shown in the updated hydrocarbon report prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. Moving to 8.338, utility requirements, electric, telephone, cable, TV should be located underground. The board finds that all utilities will be underground upon leaving the public way, as shown on C5 of the revised site plans prepared by VHB dated January 15, 20. 8.339, accessibility requirements. Developments seeking permitting for deed restricted multifamily housings for persons over age 55 shall design first floor units for universal access. The board finds that this section is not applicable. And now we're moving into our standard 12.79 special permit criteria. In accordance with chapter 40A, 12.7 of the Easthampton zoning, the planning board finds A, conformance with the provisions of the ordinance of City of Easthampton, the board finds that all of the building code requirements will be met for the construction of units. B, protection of city amenities and abutting properties with minimization of any detrimental or offensive uses or destruction of unique and important natural, scenic, and historic features on the site. The board finds that the project minimizes the amount of disturbance of the overall site as articulated under the finding for section 8.331. C, minimization of traffic and safety impacts of the proposed development on adjacent highways and roads. The board finds that the project will have a minimal impact on traffic in the neighborhood as shown in the traffic evaluation memorandum prepared by VHB dated November 6, 23. D, adequacy of the methods of disposal of sewage, refuse, and drainage service and subsurface water. The board finds the project has adequate sewage disposal as stated in the cover letter narrative, dated November 7, 23. Using 310 CMR 15.00, a Massachusetts DEP regulation. New residential homes generate sewage at a rate of 110 gallons per day per bedroom. The 14 new units will have a total bedroom count of 32, which will generate approximately 3,520 gallons of sewage per day. This sewage amount is not significant and is not expected to have a negative impact on the municipal collection system. Sewage generation is approximately 90% of water usage. Using the calculated sewage generation stated above, water usage for the new development is estimated to be 3,912 gallons per day for domestic use. Exterior landscape irrigation is not included in this project. E, adequate means of protecting wetlands, watersheds, aquifers, and well areas. The board finds that the project satisfies this condition as all buildings are located outside of the 200-foot riverfront buffer, as shown on C4 of the revised site plans prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. F, mitigation of adverse impacts on the city's resources. The board finds that based on a review prepared by the Easthampton DPW prepared February 5th, 24, the proposed units will not place excessive demands on the municipal sewer system.
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry, you're doing a great job reading. I was wondering, would you be willing to either read or summarize the letter from the DPW director? Because it addresses, a couple of the concerns that were raised previously.
All right. I'm leaving off at F, moving to G when I return. And this is the letter from the Department of Public Works from the City of Easthampton, dated February 5th, 24. Dear members of the Easthampton Planning Board, the Easthampton Department of Public Works can supply water to the proposed development at 282 Loudville Road by a connection to the 16-inch main currently located on Loudville Road. Our system is able to supply 38 to 40 psi of static pressure at this location. This connection will not be serviced by our Loudville Road booster system, which currently boosts domestic pressure to Upper Loudville Road, Ashley Circle, Hunter Lane, and Pine Hill Road, nor would it ever be allowed to due to system capacity. The Department of Public Works will not be responsible for any efforts or expenses associated with providing additional water pressure for the proposed development at 282 Loudville Road. Feel free to contact me with any additional questions or concerns regarding connections to city utilities for this project. Thank you sincerely, R. Nettleman, Director of Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you.
So hope everyone got that. It's very important. I know the butters were curious about it putting demand on their system, and it clearly won't. Moving forward to H. The applicant's efforts to integrate the development into the existing landscape through design features such as vegetative buffers and retention of open space or agricultural land. The board finds this project satisfies the condition as stated in the cover letter narrative dated November 7th, 23. The proposed development maintains 81% of the total lot as open space for use by the condominium occupants. A minimum of 10-foot landscape buffer consisting, I think that should be A, 10-foot, consisting of existing treed vegetation has been maintained around the developed area of the site. The land parcel is not classified or used for agricultural purposes. I, minimization of the area cover which existing vegetation is to be removed. The board finds the project satisfies this condition as shown on C10 of the revised site plans prepared by VHB dated January 15th, 24. The project removes large amounts of invasive vegetation and new growth trees while preserving some of the new growth trees plural, along Hunter Lane to provide a canopy buffer. The project intends to plant replacement trees to serve as a vegetative buffer. J. The consistency of the development with respect to setback area, placement of parking, architectural style, and landscaping of the surrounding buildings and development. The board finds the proposed development adheres to all required setbacks and area requirements as shown on C3 of the revised site plan prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. A to that, adequacy of the measures. Is that right? Should it go A?
I
That's a miss.
think that might be a subsection, but it could
Yeah.
also be a typo.
I don't remember there being a subsection in our. I thought they might.
Yeah, I think that might just be a typo on there.
Yeah, please adjust that so it's K and then L. Yeah. So adequacy of measures, this is K now. To prevent pollution of surface or groundwater, to minimize erosion and sedimentation, and to minimize changes in groundwater levels, increase runoff, and potential for flooding. The board finds that the proposed long-term maintenance is outlined in the long-term operation and maintenance measures, including the stormwater management plan dated November 7, 23, will provide adequate measures of protection. Finally, K, adequacy of method to ensure that the use will not constitute a nuisance by way of air or water pollution, noise. The board finds that the construction of duplexes on the property will not constitute a nuisance because the new residential uses are compatible with existing residential uses in the area and will not result in increased air or water pollution, except, I think it should be, or excessive noise in the neighborhood. Keep that in order. Okay, those are our findings. It's time now to move into conditions, and I want the board to pay attention to we need to modify some of these, and I think we decided to add one, but we'll do that at the end. Conditions. In approving a special permit, the planning board includes the following conditions. 1, the planning department shall be notified in writing a minimum of 5 days prior to the commencement of any site work associated with the project. When I ask the board to make comment on any of these, I will allow if you have any commentary on any particular condition, please do. Keep speaking specifically to the applicant. 2, all exterior site improvements shall be constructed and maintained in accordance with the following plans prepared by VHB. A, revised site plan prepared by VHB dated January 15, 24. C101 is the legend of abbreviation and general notes. C202, the overall plan. C301 to C302, layout and materials plan. C401 to C42, grading and drainage plans. C52 to C502. That the same? Maybe it's just leave this.
Should be 01.
So 01 to 02?
Yeah.
Thank you. Utility plan, which is C502 revised February 124. C601 to C602, erosion and sediment control plan. C701 and C702, roadway plan and profile. C802 to C806, details.
I believe that's a.
Should be a 2.
801.
Yeah, so,
01.
Should be a 1.
A 1 to 6.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. C901 to C902, fire truck route plan. And C1001 to C1002, planting plan. And SV1 through SV3, existing conditions of plan land. Okay. Comment. 3, any substantial changes to the site design, building footprint, or building elevation as determined by the building commissioner shall be reviewed by the planning board in a public meeting. The purpose of this public meeting will be to determine whether these changes necessitate the reopening of the public hearing for this project.
I just had one question on, if I could, sorry to interrupt. Either under the substantial changes or the landscaping plan, I just want to reiterate or go back to the discussion about the applicant has offered to go out prior to tree cutting and determine if there are significant trees that should be saved. I'm just trying to recap the discussion earlier. Do we feel that that's allowed within this condition, or do we need to make clarity?
It's listed on the plan.
It's listed on the plan. Okay, so within that landscaping plan.
Yep.
Okay.
On the side.
Perfect. Okay, I just want to make sure of that, because I think that's a generous offer of the applicant. I just want to make sure that, it's a positive thing that's incorporated into the plan. Okay.
Let's take a look at that just a little bit before I just say yes. Any substantial changes to the site design, building footprint, or building elevations as determined by the building commissioner.
That shall be reviewed with landscape.
It doesn't have anything to do with the plan. So
Yeah,
it's saying it's
so-
the building commissioner that determines that, not the plan which he says it's on.
Right,
So
I-
is our language tight? And I'm wondering it might not be.
I think the one way to change that is any substantial changes to the approved plans. I mean, it's intended to reflect
Yeah.
Yeah. any of the approved plans that are listed from like number 2.
Yes.
That's the intent of that condition.
Yep.
So are we gonna modify it then to say as determined by the site plans, the final site plans?
I would just say any substantial changes to the revised site plans prepared by the HB dated January 15th.
Does that work for you?
Leave it at that.
It does. It's just belts and suspenders on condition number 2.
Drop the
Yeah.
rest
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Okay.
Okay.
We good? All right, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the first unit, except the existing single-family dwelling, the entire base code of the road, utilities, and drainage features shall be completed. Within 18 months, this is number 5, of the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the first unit, final paving shall be completed for the entire road. 6. In the event that any exterior changes cannot be completed prior to the issuance of this certificate, of a certificate of occupancy, an alternative schedule shall be reviewed and approved by the board at a public meeting prior to the issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy. 7. All plantings installed pursuant to the approved landscape plan that die shall be replaced by the developer and/or HOA with a similar species and size as originally required. 8. Pursuant to sheet C4.01, stormwater basins are not to be used to control stormwater during construction until stabilization occurs. 9. Prior to any site work, the applicant shall coordinate a pre-construction meeting to include at a minimum the city engineer, conservation agent, and a representative from the planning board. I petition from instead of 4. The purpose of the meeting shall be to review construction stage erosion controls, stormwater controls, in compliance with the special permit requirements. 10. Prior to the issuance of a final.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're in a roll. I hate it.
That's why I need you to. I'm ready.
I'm just wondering if the conservation agent should be removed from that. Because any area that we have is outside of any jurisdiction.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, unless the conservation agent acts as the erosion, sediment control, and stormwater authority for the city.
But if we have, I think I can represent the board for that. I don't think you need a Concom person.
You were my first choice.
I'll be the representative, and I think I can satisfy anything that Concom.
As much as I want to name you, though, we can't. 'Cause we don't
No,
know
I
if
know.
you're just gonna hold, but. But I do you think the Concom should be removed as well? I agree with you. Yeah. Good. Chris? Not hearing anything there. So we could strike that, please. Anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All right, I think I was on 10. I'm gonna start that again. Prior to the issuance of a final certificate of occupancy or the transfer of the property to the HOA, the applicant should provide stamped as-built plans of the stormwater system and coordinate a post-construction meeting to include at a minimum the city engineer, conservation agent, and a representative for the planning board. The purpose of the meeting shall be for the applicant to demonstrate that the stormwater system was built in accordance with the plans and specifications.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
Strike it there as well.
Yep.
Okay, and to be specific, I'm referring to the conservation. 11, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide a stormwater bond in the amount of $136,000 to the City of Easthampton Planning Department. 12, the proposed future unit shall not be considered part of this decision. Future unit is noted as future unit on the plan, I think, right? So that is a good reference. Do you agree with that, Jeff?
Yes, that's why we had inserted it as quotation, because that's how it's listed on plans.
13, the applicant shall notify interested abutters by email 14 days prior to the formation of the HOA. An interested abutter is any person or entity that was part of the certified abutters list who expresses to the applicant. All right, who expresses, I'm thinking past tense, right? Who expressed to the applicant a desire to be notified of the formation of the HOA. Okay. 14, prior to construction, physical markers shall be placed along the 200-foot buffer and no future development shall occur within the 200-foot riverfront buffer. And I'd like to amend that to say that, all markers shall be added to the plan. So I think that's what we discussed with Mr. McCullough.
I'm sorry, could I go back to 13? You were just a little.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And the logistically kind of looking through that, where it says that we'll be notified by email. When we first discussed this internally, we thought using the city planning department as a forum for that would be the easiest way to do that, only because we don't know who the abutters are, and as Chuck said, they're gonna come and go, but the city is always gonna be here. So we didn't know whether we could have a discussion on that. It just,
I recommend that we default to what we normally do with the butters list. And you know, I don't think it's a cost for the city to email butters, so we don't just regularly do it. But I think the city can provide you with a list of the butters, and then you can, I don't know what context to offer them. What do you think of that? Can we provide them a list of butters?
Yes, so what about the email provision? Like, if we don't have all those butters emails, would a green card certified mail suffice?
that's the point. Is that, you know, the abutters list is great. That gives us identity, but they don't have the email.
Yeah, what about a certified mail?
So another way to look at this is, rather than putting that onus on you, it could be that you know, the abutters email on record, and you send it to the one email, and it's up to that representative of the abutters to kind of disseminate it. And if they, you know, right now, I'm sure it'll be Mr. McCullough, and it's up to them to update to the HOA, the one. You might not like that. I'm tossing it out as an idea.
And it's just for the formation. I don't think it's in perpetuity.
Yeah.
It's just a one-time shot.
Okay, if that's the case.
That's how this reads to me. Is that how the intent of it? Just the initial formation.
Formation.
So that's not an in perpetuity condition.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be Mr. McCullough right on.
I'm just gonna ask that, would it just be Chuck?
mean,
I would
it-
assume, yes.
Send the list.
I'll volunteer, Chuck.
Honestly, something like this is not normal for us, and we're glad that you offered to do this. I mean, it just shows the level that you've been willing to work with the
That's
auditors.
what you guys have been at.
It's above it. It's way above and beyond what we normally
I
see.
think the clarification that you just provided, that's not in perpetuity, actually, when you read it again, that actually fits well, so
Okay,
that's fine.
so we'll just leave it at
I
that.
withdraw it.
But
Yeah.
Dylan, I see you had a point you wanted to make.
Yeah, I just went on to just define interested abutter, because we wouldn't want the case where someone says, well, I was never informed about it. Well, an interested abutter is somebody who has expressed to the applicant, I want to be notified. They would provide the applicant their email address. That way.
I would assume that's probably the list of folks that's been under Chuck's,
Exactly.
direction. That sounds like. what we're
I
trying
would
to
change it to the abutters representative, by email to the abutters representative on record.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Slightly more.
Then you don't have to track all these changing things. You send it to one person and then it's up to them.
And this, yeah.
We good with that? Where was I? That was it.
That was it.
Okay.
And we had just added that
Oh,
extra to 14 there based on the earlier conversation about making sure the plan had the markers for the you know, had the physical markers noted. Okay. At this point, I think we
Can I
have.
add, for the board's, consideration, two potential ones. The first would be associated with number 14. I think what we did with the previous project, the Stepper Crossing project, was that prior to the issuance of the building permit, the declaration of restrictions shall be executed and recorded at the registry. I think that's the expectation for that document that we received today. I'd like to add that. I would just suggest. So, there's several requirements that get triggered prior to the issuance of a building permit. That's our mechanism. The declaration of restrictions shall be executed and recorded at the registry of deeds. So that's pretty belt and suspenders. That's what we were expecting this.
No
So
issues with that?
just to have it as a checklist. And then the other one that it may be just lost on me, with regard to the HOA, the board had talked about at the last meeting that the HOA contain provisions for stormwater maintenance, the sewage pump lift station, buffers, and tree clearing. And I think we would like to have a condition that's more minimal, but it said that the HOA shall contain those provisions. That would be what I think is the middle ground for the previous discussions that we had.
The condition would simply state the HOA must maintain.
Must include, yeah, provisions for stormwater maintenance, because this is the language that's in there now. The applicant provided that it's in the yellow highlighted copy. We just want to make sure that stays in there.
You can just make a list of those items.
Correct.
Can we do that?
I think that's fine.
It's just that the HOA provisions will include those items, and we just want to make sure because they've been discussed several times.
Which you've already added.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, and then one more, sorry, and then just because the organization, we didn't want to present too many changes between the last version and what the board saw and what the applicant saw. One editorial leeway that we'd like to have the board grant us is to group some of these conditions. So we have several that are prior to the issuance of a building permit and a few that are prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. What we want to do is just group them so that the condition is prior to the issuance of a building permit. There's A, B, and C items, all of which is already just
Yes,
reorganize.
We should do that
Correct.
forever after.
And because it's for the convenience of the applicant, the homeowners association, and
Yeah.
the enforcement.
Every stakeholder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Puts it in phases.
I don't think we need to change much of the language. We just want to group them so it's clear.
The problem with that?
It's actually kind of set it up as a checklist.
Yeah, it'll be more.
Yeah,
that's
that's a no-brainer.
great.
Okay, so I think we're at the point now where the board needs to make a decision. I'm gonna let if anyone on the board has final comments, in just a moment, I'll let you, do that. But I do want to note that I think we have two different things we have to vote on, which is special permit and stormwater permit. Do I have that correct, Jeff? So we'll do the stormwater permit first, then the special permit. So with regard to the stormwater permit, does the board have any final comments?
Nope.
Chris?
No,
Then in that case, I'm looking for a motion, for stormwater permit, 282 Dodville Road.
I will make a motion to approve stormwater permit for construction of up to 15 new single-family dwelling units and associated roadways, sidewalks, water, sewer, stormwater infrastructure, and an existing 12.22 acre parcel containing one existing dwelling under section 8.3 and 12.7 of the zoning ordinance and section 12-76 of the city ordinance. Property is located at 282 Loudville Road in the R35 zoning district.
Is there a second? All right. Seconded. All right, all in favor? Aye.
I,
Okay, and that was all of us, so there's no against or abstentions, it's unanimous. And now for a motion for the special permit.
I will make a motion to approve the special permit for the construction of up to 15 new single-family dwelling units and associated roadway, sidewalk, water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure on the existing 12.22 acre parcel containing one existing dwelling under section 8.3 and 12.7 of the zoning ordinance and section 12-76 of the city ordinance, located at 282 Loudville Road in the R35 zoning district.
There's a second.
I go to the runner, somebody pick.
Well, you got it first one, so give this one to Harry. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Okay, and that was all of us, so there's no against or abstentions. Unanimous. Congratulations.
John,
Thank you.
thank you all. Well done.
Long process.
Thank you, Joe,
Appreciate your development in our
and
community.
the butters, thank you as well.
Is there anything else I'll need to have signed?
No, the process from here will be that the decision will be revised based on the discussion tonight, and then it'll get recorded at the city clerk's office, and that'll start a 20-day appeal period. The abutters will be notified of that appeal period, and then after that, you would be required to record this at the registry of deeds.
Thank you
Thank
very
you all
much.
for your help.
Appreciate it. And with that, I welcome Jesse Douglas, Tim back. We have another project to discuss. Somewhere back here. Sorry we kept you.
Getting it all on the plans makes way more sense than I did.
So what?
Just making the notes on the sheet. Now I gotta do it.
It's a lot of
Jesse is
a lot
gonna
of
start
years of
another
practice
item now,
to
so
get
we do need people to,
You can skip ahead like
Thanks, James. All right, folks, moving on to the next item on our agenda, continued public hearing for Central Industrial Parkway LLC. How are we doing, folks?
How you doing? Good.
All right.
For having us back.
Yeah.
For real.
So can you give us a little update? I know there's been another filing here for us to see where we are and what's come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as of this afternoon, we got it.
I'm sorry, we gotta record for people, especially one of our members is remote.
Should I introduce myself for the record?
Please.
My name is Isaac Fleischer. I'm legal counsel for the applicant. So there were a few outstanding issues that we were asked to look into between now and the last meeting. I think the main one was that there was a plan to install lighting in the fenced-in area, or the proposed fenced-in area. And as of this afternoon, we received a photometric plan and specs for the proposed lighting. I have copies if the board doesn't already have them. Do you need them?
I believe we got that in this package here that we got right on.
Yep, and I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen as well.
Okay, fantastic. So it should look like this. There's 8 freestanding lighting posts. They're 20 feet each. 3 of them are a single light and the other 5 are double. They were arranged so as to fully light up the fenced-in area, which is where vehicles will be stored, but so as not to have lighting that projects beyond the boundaries of the parcel. And there should also be I don't know if you have the lighting specs. Yeah. Okay. Great. Great. So it's so there's, like I said, there's 2 different models there of lights, but they're both approximately 20,000 lumens. The double's obviously a little more than 20,000, and a little less, which is equivalent to 153 watts. I'm going to move on to some of the other questions unless there's been other issues that we're looking into, unless there's specifically questions about lighting right now. Fair. Sounds good. Great. So, yeah, so I had mentioned this proposed fenced-in area, which was shown on our proposed plan last week, but it also lacked exact dimensions. And I think it had the word preliminary plan on it. So we sent in a cover letter that included an updated fencing plan. It includes all of the dimensions, and it's no longer just preliminary. It's going to be the whole fence is 1,174 linear feet long. It's going to be it's galvanized chain link. It's going to be 8 feet high, and it's going to have 2 cantilever gates and 1 smaller walk-through gate. Another issue that was discussed was the fire department's request that electric vehicles be stored separately. So we did submit a diagram of how electric vehicles that had been damaged or are at risk of starting a fire would be stored in essentially these almost like a containment chamber made up of these mafia blocks. To be clear, we wouldn't be the applicant wouldn't be separating all electric vehicles from all gas vehicles. We're talking about electric vehicles that have been in an accident or for some other reason are at some risk of bursting into flames. So those vehicles will be stored, in these kind of containment chambers until they're no longer at risk of a fire. at which point they can be, moved into the vehicle gen pop. And, as was discussed a little bit at the last meeting, this is sort of a, constantly evolving area of study and, it's something that the applicant, they have other, they already have an existing tolling operation and something that they stay up to date on. And, if there's reason to change their policies or procedures, vis-a-vis electric vehicles, they'll do so. But at this time, this seems to be the best practice. And the only other issue that really came up was the question of whether or not there needs to be a separate multi-sector general permit from EPA. And we've looked into it. We've been in conversation with Mass DEP over it. It looks like it probably will be submitting a notice of intent, but for the time being, and what I said in the letter is that the applicant's going to commit to complying with all state and federal regulations and rules. So if we need that permit, we'll get that permit.
Great. Any questions from the planning board? Any questions from any of our remote members, or public?
I'm good.
Well, yes. Okay, yeah, so this was good, and I also just want to note, we did get an email from the engineer. I assume you guys have seen a copy of that.
Yes.
So it does comment on sort of starting work without getting the building permit or building inspector sign off, that it does, the engineer does approve of the proposal for the stormwater. Also mentions the multi-sector general permit, if you may or may not need that.
To clarify that there's two different types. There's one for construction, and that's what he's referencing
Right
here, and that's acreage disturbance. And the one that I reference is for their day-to-day, what they're going to do on the site. So yes,
I got you.
yeah, it's a NIPD's permit, but that's for in perpetuity if you're going to operate the proposed business at that location and discharge into waters of the U.S. You need that permit. And what the city engineer here is referencing is also if you disturb greater than 1 acre, you need, silt fence and all sorts of temporary measures during construction. That's also it is very confusing, but they're actually a bit separate.
So same type of permit, but different context, and one of them.
I agree with the city
Activities
engineer, but
yeah.
that wasn't what we were.
That's how we raised, right?
And what
Yeah.
council's raised, again, he's already touched on.
Yeah.
So just for clarification.
Okay. Planning department. Good back. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Scared there for a minute.
Great. We paused for a minute, Chris.
Yeah, we thought.
Clearly.
Nothing happened.
Yeah, we would be. Are we good to go?
Yes, thank you.
So we're still trying to get exactly what we're gonna be renting out because it really depends on the tenant that we get for what they're gonna have for equipment and storing of landscape material and that type of stuff. But overall, we're not looking for long-term storage of junk cars in any which way. It would be more or less long-term, or contractor equipment, landscape equipment, that type of stuff to help, fill that space up and get some rental income from it. It's not, we're not looking to store junk cars and just store and store. All of our cars are gonna be in a secured impound lot, which would be the towing and the repossession cars.
Yep.
Will all be to the left-hand side of the property, and then as you come in and the property goes to the right, that's where we're talking for landscape material, having some contractors coming in, parking some trailers or vans or what they may need to park there.
Okay, so when you say long-term storage for contractors and landscapers, you're thinking, I'm parking my skid steer here until the next project where I need it, not just leave it here indefinitely.
Exactly.
So you're trying to avoid speculating.
Yeah, and I mean, literally junk cars.
Well, it's
I mean,
accumulating of like a
Yeah.
waste. It could be tires or cars.
Right.
Waste oil, but in this case, it's cars.
yeah,
So yeah, he's making the case that it's.
yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think that, I mean, would you be opposed to a condition that says it's not gonna be used for storage of junk cars or something to that effect?
Inoperable.
Inoperable, or like, or long-term, or,
It's inoperable because a lot of the stores they have is inoperable.
I know, that's why you gotta have.
Put
some sort of
inoperable
long-term.
and stored for over
Yeah.
a year.
So, I mean, that would be a hard thing to go on because it's hard to say. I mean, a lot of our vehicles, we tow in and stuff like that. We take ownership of, and then we have to process through the process with the state on how we have to get rid of them.
Yeah, how about we draw a line on the site plan that shows where the landscaping and trailer, where operable temporary storage is taking place and where your, where the cars are coming in, so that physically you can't overfill, if you overfill it, that means you're accumulating. So you're
Yeah, that
restricted by.
feels like more restrictive, but, yeah, please.
What's the oldest and longest you've had a vehicle? I understand you're gonna keep some for yourself, but in general, the understanding that I have is that you're getting these in, people come and get them and tow them out, and sometimes it doesn't work and you get left with them. And you have some sort of auction service or something where you offload, and that's your process. If you're gonna keep it, it's because you got like a sweet Camaro or something that you want. I mean, do I have the gist?
For the most part, yeah, anything that we take ownership on the Ernie side anyways, anything that we take ownership of, we have to go through a process of roughly 102 to 180 days to go through that whole process.
So what's the oldest you'd have an unowned vehicle? The longest period of time for which you'd have an unowned vehicle?
So sometimes with investigation, stuff like that, we have to hold on to vehicles for a year, possibly 2 years, because they're still tied up in court. But for the most part, all that would be fenced in pen anyways. But for us, once we take ownership of a vehicle, it's 102, 108 days. We have to go through all the steps. And then we would just sell the vehicle privately to somebody, or we take it to the salvage yard down the street and junk the vehicle.
So if we said, sorry to cut you off, Isaac, but if we said, an operable vehicle won't be stored outside of that fenced in area for more than 6 months or something, does that feel safe? It's part of the problem is that your business is like so set of vague, right? But it's multifaceted, there's a lot to it. And like, again, like if we're talking about a junkyard, then like that's I think a more in-depth consideration. So I'm trying not to hamper that, but also like, that's the same Toyota Camry that's been there for
What about a year?
And I don't want to use the term junkyard because it's not what we are.
No, I know. And I get that that's not what you want to do. I want to make sure that our permit doesn't say you can do that.
And I guess one other, before Isaac speaks here, one other thing, we've also had people with interest on is parking like RVs or boats there for winter season parking, because nobody has parking for that stuff, which sometimes that would be October through winter, which would exceed that 6-month period possibly, depending on the flooding.
I'm concerned about this. Any language we put in, all these things are complaint driven. Neighbors looking at it, it's a junkyard. They're gonna come in and say, it says right here, if we're gonna put something like this in, that language has to be really tight. The complaints are they're gonna be hard to evaluate.
Well, that's why, I mean, if you're saying literally, here's a car that was there 9 months ago or a year and a half ago, that would be the violation. The problem is, I mean, I think there's what's written here is they can basically just junk
Find
that.
out how long it's been.
But if they're paying tenants, does it matter how long they stay there anyways, if they're
No.
paying for that spot?
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing is that I think like what we're talking about here as far as traffic and use of the property is not, that whole lot bumper to bumper with stacked fresh cars, right? Like that's different concept. I'm not sure that what we currently have in front of us for a draft decision says that.
I have a suggestion. In the Easthampton, zoning ordinance, is there a category for a scrapyard or a junkyard?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
could we just have a condition that says it will not be used for a scrapyard? And then we can rely on the definition in the zoning ordinance and, because what I don't want is something that's so specific that we might have an outlier vehicle that happens to be there for a long time. That doesn't, just because there's one vehicle that's there for too long, that doesn't change the use of the property. The condition should limit the use of the property. So if there's if any of the tenants' principal use is a junkyard or a scrapyard, we've got an issue.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my suggestion for.
Jeff, you look like you have that definition in front of you or no?
I'm trying, and I think this is a good conversation. It's just to get clarity because we want, again, the
Yeah, we just want to
flexibility
make sure
is.
we're all on the same page
Yeah.
right now, right? And then it's-
And we're not trying to run a junkyard and we wouldn't
No.
rent to anybody that
Yeah.
wanted to either, just.
But I also don't want to look around in 6 months and be like, oh my God, there's a junkyard there and our decision doesn't say you can't do that.
Right, so there's three elements. There's the transportation service use, which we're pretty clear on. And then the other component of the request was, the next one was that grouping of construction, storage. So I just want to read it because it's important because I think it allows the open storage of raw materials, finished goods, or construction equipment and structures for storing such equipment. So I mean, that's what
we've talked
the
about.
previous owner had got permission for. We're trying to maintain that for the current applicant. But then at the end of this table, this is what I just wanted to clarify, is there is a use category for, I'm pulling it up here. I'm sorry, I lost it. Bear with me, please.
Yeah.
Where'd it go? I'm really struggling to find it here again.
Dave's got a hard time reading this out there.
I found the open storage of raw materials.
Yep, and then there was another one. Oh, it's wait. No, I really apologize. I had it earlier.
What does your memory say it said? Do a search.
Junk,
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Motor vehicle, machinery, or other junkyard, use 41. Jeff.
41. Thank you. So that's what we're just trying to delineate that it wouldn't become that, because that hasn't been what you guys discussed.
Well, the permits that we're applying, I mean, there's just two different uses really that we're applying for. One is under the site plan, one's under the special permit.
Correct.
But like you said, it's transportation facility
Correct.
and outdoor storage. So I mean,
The key being that
we're already limited to those two uses.
Yep.
I don't really see why a condition that is necessary that includes like
I
a
mean, we can do
junkyard.
it that way.
restaurant.
We can limit it to those two uses. I was trying to give more flexibility than that, but we can,
and it may not need to be a condition, it's just that we wanted to at least have the discussion, because the key, thank you for finding that, the key is that the motor vehicle, machinery, or other junkyard is just not allowed. And that's what we just wanted to make sure that that's
That's a
clear.
junkyard part is.
Yes, yeah,
I mean, the application is for towing company in the storage, and we can just grant a permit with that. It doesn't have to be, that's what the application is for.
Yeah.
As long as, I mean, once we have this discussion, then that's on the record, that's in our minutes, that helps, you know, if anybody's wondering about it in the future, so. And that works as well, that's the.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that everything that we described so far, it would fit into one of those two categories.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, then jump in does include the provision for like, unregistered.
Yeah, but then we don't even have to get into any of that. If that, and it just,
But it limits them to just those two uses going forward without the need for a special permit. So
but it also, I mean, there's two pretty broad categories. And I think it's basically what you contemplate for that space anyway, some form of storage of equipment.
Yeah, I mean, it's the open storage was already,
Right. That's what's been going on.
The existing special permit already is open storage, so it's broad enough that this new use it's still the same category of use.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris, any comments or questions?
No, I'm good.
All right, I'm gonna go through these findings and read the proposed language, and any planning board members or planning department, we need to talk about it anymore. So first is conformance with provisions of the ordinances of the city of Easthampton, general laws of Massachusetts, and all applicable rules and regulations of state and federal agencies. The board finds that all of the building code requirements will be met for the project, and the applicant will work with the Easthampton Fire Department for the storage of electric vehicles. B, protection of city amenities and abutting properties for the minimizing of any detrimental or offensive uses or destruction of unique or important national scenic or historic features. Board finds the changes to the site are minimal, and the additional fencing and lighting will not be more detrimental to abutting properties. C, minimization of traffic and safety impacts of the proposed development on adjacent highways or roads. Board finds the units will not create a significant increase in traffic. D, adequacy of methods of disposal of sewage and refuse and the drainage of surface and subsurface water. Board finds the building interconnected to sewage and the expanded swale is adequate for the drainage of surface water from the expanded parking area. E, protecting wetlands, water tanks, aquifers, and wells. Board finds the removal of the improved surface within the 100-foot river buffer and the replanting of vegetation. This project satisfies the condition. F, mitigation of adverse impacts on the city's resources, including the effect on the city's water supply distribution system, sewage collection and treatment systems, fire protection, and streets. The board finds this project will not have an adverse impact on city resources. G, provisions for the off-street loading and unloading of vehicles incidental to the normal operation of the establishment, parking, lighting, and internal traffic control. The board finds that the project has adequate off-street parking for loading and unloading vehicles, both in outdoor parking and within the bays. H, applicant's efforts to integrate the development into the existing landscape. The board finds that with the restoration of area within the 100-foot riverfront buffer, the project satisfies this condition. Minimization of area over which existing vegetation is to be removed. The board finds that some trees were cleared prior to the application of this special permit, but with removal of the improved area within the 100-foot riverfront buffer and the replanting of vegetation in that area, that this condition is satisfied. A, the consistency of the development with respect to setback area, placement, parking, architectural style, and landscaping. The board finds the newly proposed fenced-in area is located inside the existing fenced area and will not be visible from the industrial parkway. K, adequacy of the measures to prevent pollution in surface or groundwater, to minimize erosion or sedimentation, and minimize changes to groundwater levels. Potential for flood. The board finds, based on the testimony from the applicant, that any vehicles leaking fluids will be stored inside, and the specifications of the swale satisfy this condition. And then I think we're missing an L there for the final version, but L, adequacy of methods to ensure the use not constitute a nuisance by reason of unacceptable level of air or water pollution, excessive noise, and stuff. That's where the board finds this project, the associated use of additional fencing layers not constitute a nuisance. As for the stormwater management plan, the board finds the following: peak flows and volumes decrease overall for the site. This is consistent with the purposes and objectives of the ordinance. As other projects under 12-78C, the project is required to meet the provisions of section 12-79H, 12-80C, and 12-81B. 1279H relates to the $100 fee for disturbance of less than 1 acre and greater than 10,000 square feet, which has been paid. 1280C lists the required information requiring, or you can if we're one of those requires. In the stormwater management plan for disturbance of less than 1 acre, this has been met. 1281B with specific 5 standards that must be met for less than 1 acre, but more than 10,000 square feet of disturbance. These conditions are. And the proposed conditions, we now have photometric plans. So I don't think we need condition 1 in there anymore. So we can up just our standard. Any modifications to the plans or uses presented either by submission or testimony will require a return to the planning board to determine whether such a change can be considered de minimis or substantial. Should the planning board determine that such a change can be substantial, the applicant must seek approval for such modifications in a public hearing before the board. The applicant shall store electric vehicles in a manner suitable to the Easthampton Fire Department. And I like that language because if they want to do something different than this, greater or less than what you guys are doing, we do what they say. Next, no light shall trespass beyond the property limits. And finally, the applicant shall be responsible to obtain an EPA's multi-sector general permit if applicable.
We change it to NIPD's because the multi-sector general permit, there's 2 types. They would just need the individual multi-sectors if you have a few different businesses and you all collectively want to get one together. So I misspoke with an MSGP. It's really, they all fall there.
What's that, NPD's one?
Yeah, NPDES. And then
NPDES permit?
Yeah, that's the more general sense. So it's just it's nothing different than we've discussed. It's just the proper.
And it's only if applicable.
And could I add that either way, 'cause it sounds like you guys are gonna work with the Boston folks on that. And then could you just let the planning department know which way it falls, just so they're aware, so the city engineer knows if you need one, or if Boston says you don't, then that's great.
Yeah.
But just let them know either way. It doesn't have to come before us.
And
Any comments or questions on any of those conditions for the
Are you okay
applicant?
with it?
I just had a quick question. So that's the EPA's what permit is
NPDES,
N?
National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System.
Got it.
I thought that, MSGP is
It follows
part of
under
that.
it,
It's
yeah,
like a-
but you would need the lesser one. The MSGP is more robust than your site. It's like if you were partnered with your neighbor, you collectively could get an MSGP for multiple industries on a collective parcel, but you got the one industry on your own parcel, so it'd be like an individual permit, I believe is what they call it.
Yeah.
So I misspoke with the MSGP before, but it's.
Everything else sound okay there? Okay. Any other comments or questions, planning board, planning department?
I just actually have one procedurally here, just because we're going to include the minutes from I assume this meeting into the decision. We're voting on the decision tonight procedurally. We want to just include something that can be added on administratively when you folks approve the minutes from this meeting.
And we'll also add, if it's not, I don't think it's on the list of materials, we'll add the photometric plan, the supplemental materials that were in here, so that can go index or the appendix at the end.
Yep.
All right,
To approve the chair, I'll start with a strong.
good.
I motion to approve the stormwater management permit for the operation of a transportation service facility to one company and open storage subject to zoning ordinance 12.7, 12.9, the city ordinance 12-76, property located at 10-12 Industrial Parkway.
I'll second.
All right, voting to approve the stormwater management permit. All those in favor? Aye. Chris?
Yep,
Thank you. Next up.
All right, I motion to approve the site plan approval for the operation of a transportation service facility to one company and open storage subject to zoning ordinance 12.7 and 12.9 and city ordinance 12-76. Property is located at 10-12 Industrial Park.
I will second.
All right, voting to approve the site plan for this applicant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And finally,
I motion to approve the special permit for the operation of a transportation service facility to one company and open storage subject to zoning ordinance 12.7 and 12.9 and city ordinance 12-76. Property is located at 10-12 Industrial Parkway.
Second.
all right, voting to approve the special permit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chris. All right, we will get a final previously.
One thing, did we get the request for the legal ad? Okay, so that's something you guys can provide?
Yeah.
Okay, and then,
Is it a check that goes to Easthampton?
The city of Easthampton, yes.
Okay, not
Just
the biggest.
correct, we get it to the Gazette, and then just the same thing as the other applicant. we should be able to turn this around pretty quick. And then there's a responsibility to record it at the registry of deeds at the end of the 20-day appeal period for it to fully take effect. Okay, great.
All right, great. Thanks. Good luck, folks.
Thank you, guys.
Would you need to check tonight, or do you?
If you can do it at another time, I just trust that you'll get it to us. Yes. Okay, good. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And yes,
I just wanted to say thank you to the planning department, for the project, and the earlier one we closed, I did one too, but on my behalf, the first one. The hard work you did in the draft decisions and helping us through that, that's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
all right.
Motion.
And
I have
more
one item, not associated with any of these projects, but I am gonna tell you that I'm leaving.
Oh, no.
After 6 years, I have taken another position.
Are you still within our local government?
It's gonna be, so, I'm gonna be taking a job at the BSC Group. So
Oh,
they're a
nice.
consulting firm out of Worcester. It's an opportunity that I wasn't hunting for, but it's something that will allow me to kind of round out my career, you know, in the planning profession and get private sector experience, doing budgets and doing some other work that I'm not doing here. So it's been 6 incredible years working with the board. Been through a lot, been through many meetings. But you know, Dylan's here and we're gonna work him up pretty quick here to keep all of you guys. So we'll be advertising the position, I think, as of tomorrow.
And I told Jeff already, I know he doesn't need to defend the decision to go take another job, but you will be sorely missed and greatly appreciated all you've done for the city and will feel like it's way more than 6 years.
It does. It feels like forever.
It's the mileage.
Yeah.
When does that take effect?
My last day will be March 5th. I am gonna be there. I'm in discussions with the mayor and our HR department to potentially do some part-time transition work, which I really want to try to offer the city to do, so that will hopefully kind of smooth out this period of time where we might be looking for the director position. But that seems like a potential really good option for everybody.
So that means, obviously, as always, we should be very supportive, Dylan. Believing you, you gotcha. Will you be looking to replace the position that Dylan currently holds as well? Is there 2 spots there?
No, so Dylan's position is the associate planner, and I will stay.
Dylan's
that
got
was-
his position.
Yeah, that was the plan, you know, all along, is to have the associate planner position be the land use specialist. So Dylan's been doing a lot of work talking to applicants, and that'll continue, and then he'll be with the planning board and CBA. So thank you.
On to another hiring process.
Have a good one.
I'll second.
All right, going to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
rest of your
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.